Blake Lively is no stranger to media attention. She has lived under the spotlight for most of her adult life, from the heights of red carpet glamour to the intense scrutiny of Hollywood drama. But something has shifted recently. Something darker, more invasive, more relentless. The press is no longer just reporting on her career or her appearances. They are digging into every detail of her personal life, her legal matters, her facial expressions, even her wardrobe choices. The headlines are no longer just speculation. They are accusations dressed as curiosity, emotional attacks disguised as journalism. And now people are beginning to ask the question that should have been asked long ago. Have reporters gone too far? What started as coverage has turned into obsession. What began as reporting has become a full-blown media circus, swirling around Blake Lively with no off switch. The cameras do not turn off. The microphones do not go quiet, and the questions never stop. Is she hiding something? Is she on the verge of a breakdown? Is her silence proof of guilt or exhaustion? Or both? The narrative is being shaped not by facts, but by feelings and impressions and assumptions. And Blake Lively is left to either perform for the media or be punished by it. This is not just about one celebrity. This is about the dangerous culture growing around celebrity journalism. A culture where emotional collapse is entertainment, where pain is profit, and where privacy no longer exists. And now Blake Lively stands at the center of it all, trying to hold her life together while the world watches and judges and speculates. This is not just a story about a star. This is a warning about the price of fame and the brutal cost of staying silent in a world that demands a reaction at any cost. Blake Lively walked out of the building with her head held high, but those close to her say the pressure is building inside like a volcano on the verge of eruption. It all started with a single headline. One article. That seemed to open the floodgates, and ever since then, the media coverage surrounding Blake Lively has spiraled into something far more invasive than even the most seasoned celebrity could have expected. The article in question was published by a popular outlet known for its aggressive tabloid style. And while it was packaged as an analysis of her recent legal troubles, what it really did was suggest that Blake was hiding something big. And ever since that moment, a barrage of coverage from multiple outlets followed, amplifying speculation, stirring up conspiracy theories, and essentially placing her under a microscope in ways that have left even her most loyal supporters feeling uneasy. Sources close to Blake say that she was completely blindsided by the tone of the article, and more importantly, the insinuations made without evidence or context. It was one thing to be scrutinized for your public statements or your court filings, but it was another to be dissected, emotionally, psychologically, and personally, in a way that suggested she was unraveling behind the scenes. And that is where this story begins to turn from standard press coverage into something far more troubling. Reporters have shown up outside her home. They have approached friends and even former employees looking for any quote they could spin into a new headline. And the worst part is the frequency and intensity of the coverage has only escalated. One journalist reportedly showed up at a private event where Blake was trying to enjoy a quiet evening with family friends and took photos without permission. When confronted, the journalist claimed it was public interest, that Blake was a public figure, and that there was no expectation of privacy in that setting. But many who saw the incident described it as aggressive, even hostile. Some who were present say Blake appeared visibly shaken and left shortly afterward. Since then, the media outlets involved have continued to defend their tactics, citing press freedom and the public's right to know. But others in the industry have quietly raised concerns that this is setting a dangerous precedent. And what does this mean for the rest of Hollywood? If Blake Lively can be hounded to this extent, who is next? Is this truly about journalism, or has it crossed into something darker, a form of narrative manipulation where the goal is not to report the truth, but to manufacture emotional breakdowns to create moments that go viral and fuel a never-ending content cycle? As the weeks have gone on, Blake Lively's team has made multiple attempts to slow the momentum. Her publicist issued statements reminding the press of her legal rights. Her lawyers filed letters warning against defamation and unauthorized surveillance. And yet the stories kept coming worse more and more. Outlets began copying the tactics of the first major piece, using language that implied Blake was unstable or acting erratically without citing any concrete examples, and once that framing took hold, it became almost impossible to challenge. even when other professionals, those who have worked with her on set, described her as focused, professional, and fully in control. Their words were buried beneath the noise of tabloid frenzy and internet speculation. It is worth noting that Blake Lively has not spoken directly to the media about this. Yet she has remained mostly silent, posting only cryptic messages on her social platforms, including one that simply said, "I see everything," followed by another that read enough, and fans immediately jumped in to interpret those posts, some seeing them as warnings, others as signs of distress. But everyone agreed on one thing: she was trying to send a message that something was seriously wrong. What makes this moment so unique is that the usual celebrity playbook is not working the machine of Hollywood PR. The carefully crafted statements, the red carpet appearances, the smiling through it all, none of. It is stopping this media machine from chewing through her public image. And now behind the scenes, insiders say she is starting to break down under the weight of it all, reportedly crying during closed-door meetings, canceling scheduled public appearances, and even pushing back against her team when they encourage her to just ride it out. The emotional impact of this kind of press pressure cannot be overstated, and those who know her well are beginning to worry that we may be watching a real-time erosion of not just a public image, but of a person's sense of stability. There is also another factor at play here, one that has not been fully addressed yet, and that is the role of social media. Because for every tabloid headline, there are thousands of tweets, posts, and comments that either amplify the claims or attack her directly. The mob mentality of the internet can be relentless, and once a celebrity becomes the target of that energy, it becomes nearly impossible to escape or correct the narrative, and Blake Lively is learning that lesson the hard way. Recently, a clip from an old interview she did resurfaced where she talked about the emotional toll of public scrutiny. And in that clip, she said, "I don't think people realize how hard it is to have every part of your life pulled apart by strangers. It can make you feel like you're not a real person anymore, just a thing for others to consume." That quote is now circulating again, with fans expressing heartbreak over how prophetic her words were and how closely they reflect what she is going through right now. But the question remains, how did things get this bad so quickly? What shifted in the coverage that turned her from beloved actress to tabloid target? And more importantly, what role are these aggressive reporters playing in that shift? Is it really about journalism, or is it about pushing someone to their limit so they crack on camera or in public, so they become the next viral meltdown, the next trending hashtag, the next moment that gets replayed on every entertainment show for a week? The situation is becoming more dire by the day. And unless something changes, unless the tone of the coverage shifts, or her team finds a way to regain control, this could become one of the most damaging media cycles of her entire career. The situation surrounding Blake Lively is continuing to spiral, and what once appeared to be a harsh media cycle now feels like a full-scale media campaign against her. And her silence has only added fuel to the speculation as reporters continue to dissect her every move, her every post, and even the expressions on her face during public appearances. Recently, a video clip from outside a courthouse began circulating, showing Blake exiting the building surrounded by her legal team and security. She is not speaking, but the look in her eyes is what has caught the public's attention. Some believe she looks defeated, others say she looks furious. And while these interpretations are subjective, the fact remains that her image is being analyzed, frame by frame, by those looking to extract drama out of every second. And it is not just the paparazzi anymore even. So-called legitimate journalists have begun stepping into this space, attempting to blend traditional reporting with tabloid style. Emotional framing. One article from a well-known magazine described her as spiraling. Another claimed she was unraveling emotionally. And these descriptions are not based on any formal interview, not based on any statement, just on the reporter's impression of how she appeared in one photo. And that is where the danger lies. The shift from reporting facts to interpreting emotions, from publishing verified statements to publishing speculative analysis of body language and tone, has created a landscape where any celebrity can be recast as unstable or dramatic at any time with little recourse, and Blake Lively is now caught in the middle of that machinery. Her recent legal involvement has not helped the matter either, as court filings that should have remained private are now being leaked and dissected by bloggers, influencers, and even mainstream outlets. One leak suggested she expressed frustration toward a member of her team. Another hinted at internal disagreements within her legal strategy. And while none of this is unusual during high-profile cases, The way it is being packaged and reported makes it sound like chaos behind the scenes. And the audience is lapping it up because the press has trained them to expect drama, not complexity, spectacle, not nuance. And in doing so, they have created a market for emotional narratives rather than factual ones. And Blake Lively is being served up as the latest main character in this endless drama. But there is more going on than just press. Overreach, there are real consequences beginning to take shape. Sources say she has pulled out of multiple projects in recent weeks, citing personal reasons, but behind closed doors. It is being said that the mounting pressure from this wave of media coverage has made it impossible for her to focus on creative work. One producer reportedly shared anonymously that Blake looked tired, worn down, emotionally drained. And this is not the version of her that people are used to seeing on set. She has always been described as focused, collaborative, and calm, but the recent experiences have left her shaken, and that emotional toll is starting to affect her ability to do what she loves. Even her family is reportedly concerned, and for someone as private as Blake, this is particularly hard because it means the storm is not just professional anymore, it is personal and reaching into her home life too. Her children are young but old enough to pick up on stress. Her husband Ryan Reynolds has made no public statement about the situation, but insiders claim he has been working behind the scenes to offer support and protect the family from further intrusion. Still, the press continues its chase, and now the target has shifted from Blake herself to those around her. Journalists have reached out to old co-stars, former assistants, even school friends looking for quotes. Any quote that could provide a new headline, and some have been bold enough to admit it openly on social media, asking followers if they have any insider knowledge they can share. This is not journalism, this is harassment under the guise of reporting, and it is beginning to fracture the relationship between Hollywood and the press in new and disturbing ways. Because if Blake Lively can be subjected to this level of intrusion and narrative bending, who is safe? What rules exist anymore to protect people from the emotional erosion that this kind of coverage brings? Some reporters have pushed back, insisting they are just doing their job, that celebrities are public figures, and this comes with the territory. But there is a growing counter-argument that being a public figure should not mean being emotionally targeted or psychologically cornered for entertainment. And now the conversation is beginning to shift to that wider question. What responsibility do reporters have when covering legal or emotional issues involving public figures? When does coverage cross into cruelty? And who gets to decide where that line is? Fans have started campaigns urging media outlets to back off. Hashtags calling for respect for Blake have trended multiple times, and even other celebrities have weighed in subtly with vague posts about press ethics and boundaries. But so far, nothing has slowed the momentum, because at the core of this problem is not just the media, but the algorithms that reward emotional headlines over balanced ones, the systems that elevate speculation over truth. And in that world, Blake Lively is not a person, she is a product, a trending name, a profitable wave of clicks and views. And as long as that remains true, the pressure will likely continue, and that reality is what makes this moment feel so urgent, because something has to give. And the question is, what will it be? Will Blake find a way to reclaim the narrative? Will her team find a legal solution that discourages invasive tactics? Or will this be another chapter in the long history of the media, building up a star only to tear them down at the first sign of vulnerability? And beyond Blake, what does this mean for the next celebrity who finds themselves in the spotlight? For the wrong reasons, are we entering a new era where every moment of stress is seen as a performance? Every tear, a potential headline, every mistake, a viral clip waiting to happen. That is the deeper story here. The cultural shift that is playing out in real time, and Blake Lively is at the center of it, whether she wants to be or not. The media has always had a complicated relationship with celebrities, but what is happening to Blake Lively right now feels different. It feels personal, invasive, and calculated. There was a time when a celebrity could issue a statement, and that would be the end of the story. A time when journalists respected certain boundaries and paparazzi followed unspoken rules. But those days are gone, and in their place is an industry driven by virality, outrage, and attention. Blake Lively has become the target. Not because of a scandal, not because of anything criminal, but because she represents the perfect storm of beauty fame. silence and mystery. And the media cannot stand mystery. They want answers. They want reactions. They want breakdowns. And so they keep pushing until something cracks. In recent weeks, even Blake's fashion choices have been weaponized by the press. One article suggested that a change in her wardrobe indicated emotional distress. Another claimed that her lack of makeup in a recent photo was a sign of inner turmoil. These kinds of narratives are not based on any fact, they are based on assumption and emotion. And the audience eats it up because they have been trained to believe that everything a celebrity does is a message or a cry for help or a symbol of something deeper. And so when Blake shows up to court wearing black, it is not just a color, it is a statement. And when she avoids eye contact with photographers, it is not privacy, it is evidence of guilt, or fear, or some hidden story waiting to be uncovered. This is the level of projection that is now defining celebrity journalism. And for someone like Blake, who has always valued her privacy, it is nothing short of a nightmare. Her inner circle has reportedly become even tighter, with fewer and fewer people being allowed into her immediate environment. Not because she is paranoid, but because every time someone speaks to the media, even off the record, it turns into another viral headline, and that kind of betrayal wears on a person. It creates anxiety, stress, and in some cases, even paranoia. Insiders say Blake has begun second-guessing her decisions, her appearances, her friendships, wondering who she can trust, and what information might be twisted against her, and this is the emotional cost of the current media landscape. It is not just about damage to a brand or a reputation, it is about the erosion of trust, of peace, of safety. And that is something no amount of fame or money can fix. Meanwhile, the media continues to push forward, emboldened by the traffic. The engagement, the Buzz One outlet published a so-called analysis of her facial expressions, comparing photos from recent years and suggesting there was a visible change in her emotional state, as if anyone could accurately diagnose mental health from paparazzi photos. Another ran a headline asking if she was losing control, quoting anonymous sources that may or may not even exist, and this kind of coverage is not just misleading, it is dangerous. It feeds into a culture that sees emotional distress as entertainment, that celebrates pain as performance, and in doing so, it creates a cycle that is almost impossible to break. But there are people speaking out, slowly, cautiously, voices from within the industry who are uncomfortable with how far things have gone. One former entertainment reporter said off the record that the pressure to deliver dramatic narratives has become unbearable, that facts are no longer enough, that editors want emotion, speculation, virality, and that many in the industry know it is wrong but are too afraid to say anything, because if they do, they risk their jobs, their access, their careers, and so the machine continues. And celebrities like Blake are caught in the gears trying to survive without being crushed. And it is not just emotional survival either. There are real professional consequences happening behind the scenes. Brands are reportedly pausing campaigns. Productions are being delayed. Deals are being reconsidered, not because of anything Blake did, but because of the noise around her. And this is perhaps the most unfair part of it all, that the consequences of media speculation fall on the person being targeted, not on the people creating the chaos. Blake Lively has always been described as professional, collaborative, and generous on set. And yet now, because of a narrative she did not create, she is being treated like a liability, and that is not just wrong. It is devastating to a career, because Hollywood runs on perception. And once that perception changes, it can take years to rebuild. And even then, it may never fully recover. And so Blake is left to fight a battle she never asked. For against an enemy that has no face, only headlines and algorithms and clicks, and behind every headline is a writer, an editor, a producer. Someone making a choice to prioritize attention over accuracy, speculation over truth, and behind every click is a reader, a viewer, a fan. Someone who may not realize that their engagement is part of the problem. And that is where the cycle continues, because as long as there is demand, there will be supply. And until the culture shifts, until audiences demand better, more ethical coverage, nothing will change, and more celebrities will fall into the same trap built by the same system. And the cycle will repeat itself again and again and again, unless someone finally says enough, and maybe that someone will be Blake. Maybe this experience will push her to take a stand, to challenge the system, to speak out. Not just for herself, but for everyone who has ever been reduced to a headline, stripped of their humanity, and turned into content maybe, but until Then the pressure continues, and every day brings a new headline, a new angle, a new twist in a story that should never have been a story in the first place. And the world watches, not realizing that what they are witnessing is not entertainment, but erosion, and the damage being done may take years to repair if it can be repaired at all. Blake Lively has spent years building a career based on talent, privacy, and grace. But now she finds herself in a position she never asked for at the center of a media storm that refuses to let go. What we are witnessing is not just the struggle of a celebrity facing public scrutiny. It is the unraveling of boundaries between journalism and harassment, between reporting and obsession, and while Blake remains mostly silent. Her silence speaks louder than any statement could. The pain in her eyes, the tension in her posture, the withdrawal from public life all tell a story the press refuses to hear. They want drama, they want collapse, they want emotion. And when they do not get it, they create it. They build narratives out of shadows and call it truth. And the audience clicks and shares and comments, unknowingly fueling the machine that is slowly breaking. A real person behind the headlines is a woman trying to protect her family, her peace, and her dignity. And yet every move she makes becomes ammunition for another headline, another theory, another takedown. The question now is not whether Blake Lively will survive this, because she will. The question is what will be left when it is over. Will the industry learn anything? Will the press reflect on how far they have gone? Or will the cycle continue until another name, another face becomes the next target?
Also press this bell icon.
Blake Lively's story is a reflection of a system gone too far and a culture too hungry for scandal to stop. And if something does not change, now the consequences will only grow more severe, more personal, more permanent. And maybe this will be the moment that forces Hollywood, the media, and the audience to finally draw a line and say enough.